Greetings and warm welcome, dear audience. Here we are again in another chapter with Professional Masterclass on our topic today will be, we are still in advanced, we are still at advanced level where tools, techniques and publishing are the main topic. And today is lecture number 17. This will be on writing, research, proposal, and grant application. And today, part 2 is grant application, right, Dr. Rania?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So we have finished writing research proposal in part 1, and today we will be doing part 2 on the grant applications. So without much ado, we shall start. And I would like to welcome our Ambassador Professor Dr. Rania Lampu to start her session. Welcome. Happy weekend.
Thank you. Happy weekend. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar on writing successful grant applications. Why it is important? Because grants are one of the most powerful tools that we have to turn good ideas into real impact. But as many as of you know, that this process can be very intimidating. Understanding funders, meeting deadlines, and writing in a way that truly inspires confidence, it's not easy. And that's exactly what today is about. Over the course of this session, we will explore the key ingredients of a winning grant proposal, how to understand what funders are really looking for, how to write with clarity and purpose, and how to present your project in a way that stands out from the competition. So thank you, Dr. Estera, for inviting me, for giving the opportunity to design this series in research. And of course, I would like to thank Elegant Empire Education for this incredible work that you're doing. Thank you. So we'll start now sharing my presentation.
Yes.
I guess you can see now.
Yeah, I will add to the stage now. Okay. It's
Can you?
visible.
Yes. Can you see the change of slides?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Please proceed.
So the first step when we want to apply for a grant, the first step is to understand grant opportunities and to search which organizations or agencies could fund research in our appropriate area, in our field. If you are in the field of STEM, you can check, for example, European Research Council or Wellcome Trust, National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health. If you are in the field of social sciences, then you will search for Social Science Research Council or National Endowment for Humanities, or private foundations like the Russell Sage Foundation. If you are in the field of humanities, then we have Mellon Foundation, British Academy, Environmental Sustainability Research, UN-related grants, or Environmental Protection Agency, Global Challenges Research Fund, etc. And of course, in medical life science, we have the Gates Foundation, and of course, many pharmaceutical companies which actually offer a lot of grants. So the first step is this, and the second step is to see if these grants are addressed to early career researchers, to postdocs, or established scientists. So we talk about early career researchers, which is usually for the first 7 years. Then we have the European Research Council, that I mentioned before, so you can check the criteria for eligibility. The funding is up to $1.5 million for 5 years, with additional funding available for startup costs. And another other institution is the Wellcome. This institute provides grants for researchers for many disciplines, so this is very interesting. And this also supports innovative projects that aim to deliver shifts in understanding related to human life, wealth, and well-being. National Science Foundation also, which helps early career researchers in US. The postdoctoral, in another category, fellowship. Here we have the National Science Foundation and other institutions, Scientific Research Postdoc grants. And for established researchers, still, there is, for example, the Royal Society's Faraday Fellowship, where established researchers in the field of science and engineering can apply. We talk about up to 4 million euros for projects lasting up to 10 years. So you can understand that it's very, very important, all these opportunities. In Europe, also have a European Research Council advanced grant for leading principal investigators who have a track record of significant achievements. And I want to say here that in Greece, very recently, our Ministry of Education introduced for the first time in the history of Greece what we call industrial PhDs. What is industrial PhDs? That it's actually a direct collaboration with the industries, with companies. And industries, what they're doing, they make an open call, so they invite researchers to submit an innovative idea, and then they fund directly this innovative idea. So that's which later will become a product, or it will be valorized by the industry. So that's why we talk about industrial PhDs. So the government here is not involved. So if you check the eligibility criteria, if we talk about institution, for example, many grants require applicants to be affiliated with recognized research institutions, such as universities or colleges or research institutes or laboratories or hospitals. Some other fellowships allow independent researchers, but this is rare and usually for highly experienced investigators. Certain grants are restricted to specific institutions, for example, only in universities in a particular country or region. The second criterion is nationality. Some grants are national, require applicants to be citizens. Of course, there are international grants. The career stage, because grants are often designed for specific career levels. I mentioned about the three categories: early career researchers or postdoctoral fellows or established researchers. And other common criteria could be a field of research. Some grants are discipline specific, so STEM or social sciences. The previous funding, certain grants may restrict applicants who already have substantial funding. The ethical and legal compliance, for example, projects involving human subjects or animals or sensitive data often require prior ethical approval. And proposal quality, because some grants require evidence of preliminary work, feasibility, or institutional support letters. So what is the tip here is that we need always to check the funding agency's official guidelines. So eligibility can differ even with similar programs. Thematic priorities or specific research topics which emphasized, for example, in 2025 or 2024, the previous year. So first, we have seen that the research topics which are more trendy nowadays have to do with green digital transition, so climate action, clean energy transition, digital transformation. The second one was related with health and well-being, so for example, cancer research. All these initiatives to improve prevention, the mental health, the aging population. And resilience and security, cybersecurity, disaster preparedness is also a very important topic in research now. It's very trendy. Public health security, especially after the COVID pandemic. And economic growth innovation, of course, we talk about deep technology like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, circular economy, which promotes sustainable production consumption patterns, and advanced materials, research into new materials for applications in energy, transport, and electronics. So apart from this, we have specific research topics which can we explore. This relation with what we call Destination Earth, how to create a digital twin of Earth to simulate and understand climate change impacts against about environment, advanced materials, quantum technologies, biodiversity, and ecosystems. After this first step, then you need to conceptualize your research proposal. Already in the previous session, we have explored in details this stage. But again, what we could say here is that the central research question or hypothesis is the core focus of a study, because this defines what the researcher wants to investigate or test. It guides the entire research process from data collection to analysis and defines the scope and purpose of this study. So the first is to formulate a clear, focused question that identifies the phenomenon, population, and context. It usually begins with words like how, what, or how, why. And the hypothesis, what is hypothesis? Is a testable statement predicting the relationship between variables. It is often formulated as an if-then statement of a directional prediction. And what is the difference between the two of them? That the first one, in terms of purpose, aims to explore or investigate the phenomenon, the research question. On the other hand, the hypothesis predicts and tests relationships. The research question is open-ended. The other one is declarative and testable. The first one guides study design, and hypothesis guides data analysis and testing. So in short, we could say that the research question asks what are we investigating, and the hypothesis predicts what we expect to find. So in your grant application, you always need to have a clear research question and the hypothesis. How does my research, you need to mention how does your research contribute to existing knowledge? Does your research fill the knowledge gaps? So investigates areas that have not been explored or they are under research. Does this research test current assumptions or frameworks or models, potentially leading to refinement or revision? Does this research introduce new methods or tools? So applies innovative technologies or analytical approaches to an established problem. What else? Providing context-specific insights. This means that our research maybe offers localized or sector-specific evidence that complements general findings. Synthesizing integrated knowledge. Maybe we combine data or disciplines or perspectives to create a more comprehensive understanding. For example, linking economic, social, environmental indicators to assess sustainable development holistically. Or when we aim, through our research study, to inform policy or practice. So we provide actionable insights that stakeholders can use to improve decisions or interventions. So we can, all these points add value to our grant application. So these points strengthen the body of knowledge by adding new evidence, by refining ideas, or offering practical applications. It's the bridge, we could say, between what is already known and what still needs to be understood. Of course, in our research proposal, in our description, we need to include the objectives, the expected outcomes of our research, what the study aims to achieve and what results it anticipates producing. We all know already that objectives should be specific, measurable goals. And objectives break down the central research question into actionable steps. The characteristics should be that they should be feasible, aligned with the research question, clear and precise. And what will be the expected outcomes? The anticipated results or impacts of the study, what new knowledge or practical applications might emerge, and what are the characteristics of expected good or strong expected outcomes, that they are realistic, they are tangible, they are achievable, they can be, for example, policy-oriented or practice-oriented. And of course, the outcome should be related to the objectives. Now, what methodologies? You need always to mention what methodologies and approaches you will use. So you first start from objectives, what you plan to do, what you hope to achieve or discover. Clearly stating both helps justify the study and shows how it contributes to knowledge, policy, or practice. And the methodologies and approaches describe how you plan to conduct your research. So this includes the strategies, the tools, the techniques used to collect, to analyze and interpret data. Choosing appropriate methods ensures that your study is rigorous, credible, and aligned with your research question or hypothesis. So if, for example, we talk about research approach, then you need to decide on the overall framework. That could be quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method. The data collection methods, surveys, questionnaires, observations, second data analysis, experiments, the data analysis techniques, and the ethical considerations if you obtain consent from participants, if you ensure privacy and data security, if you report findings honestly and transparently, and justify your methodology, explain why your chosen approach is suitable for your research question. Then you need to mention how innovative or original is your research. Of course, your methodologies and approaches define the how of your research. They must align with the objectives, with the expected outcomes that I mentioned in the beginning, and the type of data needed to answer your research question. So the innovative nature or originality of research refers of how it adds new knowledge, new perspectives, new methods or applications to a field rather than simply repeating what has already been done. So this highlighting this helps justify the study's significance. So what are the ways to assess or demonstrate originality? What I mentioned before, if you fill knowledgeable gaps, if you challenge existing assumptions, if you introduce new methods, if you bridge the gap between fields to generate holistic insights, and if you produce insights that can be applied in novel ways in order to solve real-world problems, so policy or practical applications. Adding context-specific insights if you provide knowledge about regions, cultures, or systems that are poorly represented in the literature. So original research doesn't have, remember this, original research doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. It can be a new perspective or method or context or application. Its value lies in advancing understanding and offering insights that weren't previously available. After this draft, you move with budget and resources. So this includes how we understand the allowable cost. Allowable cost is the key to building a strong fundable budget, so we need to understand this. Of course, the exact rules depend on the funding agency, but here you can see what most research grants cover. So they cover personal costs, for example, what is allowed salaries and wages for principal investigator or co-investigators or postdocs. So salaries and wages, and fringe benefits that could have that could include the health insurance, retirement contributions as per institutional policy. The second has to do with equipment. What is allowed, specialized research equipment directly needed for the project. That could be software, instruments, hardware essential to research. Materials and supplies, laboratory consumables, research-related software licenses, field supplies, the travel for field work or for conferences, economy flights, reasonable lodging and per diem, local transportation related to research, and publication and dissemination costs Usually, this includes open access publication fees, printing posters, organizing dissemination workshops, or stakeholders meetings. Are there limits on total funding or specific categories? I'm going to mention about the other direct costs here that, for example, data collection expenses or specialized training relevant to project goals are usually included in the grants. And some indirect costs that could be institutional overload, administrative costs, or rates that are typically negotiated between the institution and the funder. All these are usually allowed. So always remember that the funding calls budget guidelines carefully to read all the guidelines of the budget. What is allowed in one program may be prohibited in another program. A strong budget also includes justifications, explain why its cost is essential. Remember this, you need to justify why its cost is included in your proposal. What are the limits of total funding or specific categories? We talk about total funding limits, as many grants specify a maximum award size that could be 5,000, $50,000 for seed grants, 500,000 for multi-year projects. Or if we talk about duration-based limits, some programs give an annual cap. For example, $100,000 per year for 3 years. Or we have the category of tiered programs. Large agencies offer these different schemes of this. And the second category is the category specific limits. Funding calls often cap or restrict certain line items for equipment, for personnel, for travel. The matching fund requirements, some funders require that the host institution partners match part of the budget in cash or in kind support, so lab space, staff time. So what you need to do is always review the calls, budget rules and caps before drafting your proposal. You can, for example, ask for travel costs if the travel cost is not included in the requirements. So exceeding a limit is one of the most common reasons proposals get rejected without review. So remember this. If you don't check the guidelines and if you write something which is not included in the requirements, your proposal will be rejected. So how will justify the budget and its alignment with my research plan? Budget justification is one of the most important parts of the grant application, and it can make or break your proposal even if the scientific description is strong. So first you need to match every cost to research activity. For each work package or task, you need to specify the cost that's supported. For example, 2 research assistants will collect and code survey data during the year. This goes, for example, for $40,000. So this shows reviewers that every dollar has a purpose directly tied to your objectives. The second, explain why each item is necessary. You need personnel, describe their roles and their responsibilities. The postdoctoral fellow will develop and validate the machine learning model. If you need equipment, you need to explain why existing resources are insufficient. If we talk about travel, then you need to connect it to dissemination, collaboration, or data collection. You have to be realistic and transparent. So use standard salary scales, institutional codes, market prices, break down large sums into smaller, understandable parts. These are very important tips. And avoid inflated costs. Both reviewers can spot, suspicious budgets. So follow funders' guidelines, use the required format, the table, the narrative, or both. Respect any category limits or caps. For example, the max travels per year. And if overheads are excluded, don't include them. Show value for money. Demonstrate, this means that you need to demonstrate efficiency by comparing cost to impact. Mention in-kind contributions, lab space or equipment already available, institutional support, and highlight co-funding if it's possible. So the tip here is that a strong budget justification reads like a mini project management plan. It shows that you have thought through resources, timelines, and feasibility. To mention already about the institutional overheads or matching fund requirements. The institutional overheads, these are costs that support research indirectly. That could be administration or utilities or building maintenance. So there are typical overhead rates. Universities often have a negotiated rate with major funders. Some funders have cap overhead. For example, European Union Horizon project caps indirect costs at 25% of eligible direct costs. And many private foundations do not cover overheads or limit them to 20%. How this affects your budget? Overheads are usually actually added on top of your direct research costs. For example, if your direct costs are $100,000 and your overhead rate is 20%, then the total budget requested is $120,000 USD. The second has to do with the matching fund requirements. Some grants require that your institution contributes financially or in kind. This is what we call matching fund. What could be cash matching. Your university or your another partner contributes actual money to the project. What we call in-kind matching. Instead of cash, the institution provides lab space, staff time, or tuition remission for graduate students. And some key points include that you need to ask your grants office early because they know your institution's negotiating overhead rate and whether they can meet match requirements. That's why you need to ask your grants office early. Factor matching into your budget plan. This is a project with required co-funding may need internal approval before submission. And document commitments clearly. Matching funds usually require a signed letter from your institutions. If you are applying for a grant with matching requirements, then you need to involve your research office as soon as possible because they need time to secure internal approvals and budget commitments. So now, what about the proposal writing? What sections are required? Already in our previous sessions, we have explored this in every detail. Almost every research grant proposal follows a similar core structure. Of course, wording or page limits can vary by funder. So the abstract, which gives a clear, concise overview of the research, the background, the literature review. Here you show that you understand the current state of knowledge. You include the relevant studies. You mention why this research is timely and needed, how it builds or how it challenges existing work. Then the objectives, what you will accomplish, how you will achieve your objectives, so methodology, the research plan, what will be the impact, how you need to convince funders why your project matters. So here you need to include scientific, social, or economic benefits, alignment with the funder's mission or strategic priorities, and potential for scaling, policy influence, or innovation. This is what impact, the section impact should include. The methodology that I mentioned before, what could include study design, experiments, data collection methods, timeline, statistical analysis or modeling approach, risk management, and mitigation strategies. Of course, we start from our main research question, the specific aims or hypothesis, and measurable outcomes. And then, for team institutional support, you need to show that you have right expertise or resources. So you need to mention your team. You can submit your team, the bios of your team, your collaborators, your partners, the institutional facilities, and the resources. For budget, we need to show financial feasibility and transparency. So this could include itemized cost narrative explaining why each cost is necessary, the institutional overhead if it's applicable, the ethical and compliance statements, the ethics approval, if, for example, human animal subjects are involved, data management plan, the intellectual property considerations, ensure that your research is responsible and approved. And the references, of course, because here this acknowledges prior work and guide reviewers. Some funders add some extra sections that would be broader impacts or knowledge exchange. So that's why you need to always read the specific call guidelines carefully because they often include word limits and formatting rules. Now, how should I highlight the significance and innovation of a work? I mentioned before that we need to open with a compelling case. What problem you are solving? Why should anyone care? Then use evidence, data, statistics, literature to show the scale or urgency of the issue. And then make sure a reviewer from outside your exact subfield understands why this matters globally, nationally, or scientifically. Then you show the knowledge gap. Highlight that what we don't know yet, why current solutions are inadequate. Position your research as a logical next step to fill this gap. Explain the innovation, so be explicit what is new, unique, or transformative about your approach. So innovation can mean new methods, new theoretical approaches, application of new methods to a new domain, interdisciplinary collaboration, bringing fresh insights, etc. Connect to impact, explain who benefits from your research, scientists, policymakers, industry, communities. Describe short-term outcomes, paper, data sets, or tools, and long-term benefits. Long-term benefits could encompass policy change, economic growth, improved health, etc. Definitely, you need to use compelling, accessible language, avoid jargon. Reviewers may not be deep experts in your area. Use strong verbs. Strong verbs could be the word transform, redefine, enable, rather than neutral ones, study or explore. These are neutral ones. Summarize the significance in a sentence that you could put in a press release. And align with the funder's mission, you need to check the funder's priorities or strategic plan and mirror the language. Show how your project advances their goals, sustainability, health, innovation, etc. Treat innovation significance as your hook. Reviewers should finish reading your summary thinking. This is important, and this team is doing something genuinely new. So things like that. Of course, there are formatting length or style guidelines. So the check of the overall page limit, the individual sections, the supplementary materials, the formatting requirements, the font, etc., the style guidelines, the figure tables, references, citation styles, the file submission requirements, and every minor formatting errors can disqualify your proposal. So reviewers often cannot correct or overlook formatting mistakes. How can I write for reviewers outside my immediate subfield? This is a common challenge, especially for interdisciplinary or highly technical research. The key here is clarity, context, and accessibility. So then you need to start with a big picture overview, open your proposal with a clear, simple summary of the problem and why it matters. Avoid jargon, acronyms in the abstract and first section. Give real-world or social context to frame your research. Then we need to define key terms, include brief definitions for specialized terms, use analogies and examples. Analogies help reviewers from other disciplines to grasp abstract concepts, complex concepts quickly, or you can use examples from broader contexts in order to illustrate technical points. Emphasize significance and impact, so focus on the why and what difference it makes rather than the technical issues and highlight broader cultural scientific impacts. The structure for readability, this means use headlines, bullet points, short paragraphs, etc. Balance technical detail, include enough technical detail to show rigor but avoid overloading the proposal with jargon. You can place highly technical methods in the method section and summarize them in simple terms earlier. This is one tip. Prefer active voice and strong verbs, so avoid long sentences. Check readability using tools like Hemingway Editor or Grammarly, AI tools, and test your proposal. You can have a colleague, for example, or a mentor outside your subfield, read it and give feedback. Ask them if they can summarize what is the problem, what will you do, and why does it matter. Remember something, that reviewers don't need to be expert in your expert area. They only need to understand why your research is important, feasible, and innovative. Clear writing increases the chance of a favorable review. Now, institutional and ethical requirements. Does my institution need to endorse or submit the proposal? So, yes, in most cases, your institution must endorse and submit the grant proposal. So, what it typically involves, it involves an institutional endorsement. Most funders require a formal letter of support or approval from your institution. That could be a department chair or dean or research office. And this confirms that you are affiliated with the institution, that the institution supports your project, the resources, the lab space, that the institution is aware of any commitments, including matching funds or overhead. Second, it's institutional submission, because many grants, especially federal or large international programs, must be submitted through your institution. So submission offices usually handle uploading the application to the funder supporter, ensuring compliance with formatting, budget, and ethical requirements, securing necessary signatures from authorized institutional officials. And of course, institutional involvement matters because it confirms the legal responsibility for fund management, reporting, and compliance. It's something which provides institutional backing, the lab space, the HR support, the ethics approvals, and of course helps reviewers trust that the project is visible and well supported. Of course, if we think about exceptions, some small fellowships or private foundation grants allow independent researchers to apply without formal institutional submission. Even then, having a letter of support from your host institution or mentor, this strengthens your proposal. So the tip here is to contact your grants or sponsors research office early, because they will check eligibility, they will review budget for compliance, they will submit a proposal on your behalf if it's required. So the ethics approval needed. Most research grants require ethical approvals when your project especially involves human participants, animals, sensitive data, or other potentially risky activities. For human subject research, then you need to check for an institutional review board or the ethics committee approval. So this is required if you collect data directly from people, surveys, interviews, if you use identifiable personal data, if you conduct clinical trials or behavioral studies. So informed consent must be obtained from participants. Privacy and confidentiality must be ensured. Risk to participants must be minimized. For the animal research, here is another kind of approval which is required, what we call institutional animal care and use committee or equivalent. Any other equivalent approval is required if you use vertebrate animals. So the key consideration here is to justify the use of animals, follow humane treatment protocols, and minimize pain and distress. The data security and privacy is required if you handle sensitive or personal identifiable information. So here the key elements include the secure storage, transmission of data, compliance with local and personal data protection laws, updated management and sharing plan. And other ethical considerations could include environmental impacts, fieldwork in sensitive ecosystems, dual use research, cultural communities, sensitivities, etc. So some practical steps could include to check for funder requirements. Some grants will not award funding until approvals are obtained. Submit early. Ethical review boards may take weeks or months to process applications and include documentation in your proposal. Often a section is required on ethical considerations with copies of approvals letters if available. So ethical compliance is not just a formality. Remember this. Reviews often judge your proposal feasibility and integrity based on how well ethical issues are addressed. Uh, Letters of support now. Letters of support from collaborators or mentors. Yes, in most research grant applications, letter of support are strongly recommended and sometimes required because they serve to strengthen your proposal by showing credibility, feasibility, and institutional commitment. So first, you need to write down to clarify the purpose. So what is the purpose of the letters? They confirm the collaboration, they demonstrate your expertise, they show your institutional backing, and they support feasibility, evidence that resources, facilities, or personnel will be available as promised. Show that partners or co-investigators are committed to participating. Highlight the skills and the resources that your collaborators bring to your project. What are the typical sources of letters? For example, collaborators or co-investigators must confirm that what are their roles and responsibilities in the project. Mentors or advisors, especially for early career researchers or postdocs, the letters can highlight your capability and readiness to lead the project. If we talk about partner institutions, then you need to confirm provision of facilities, equipment, or other in-kind support. What a strong letter should include? First, description of the relationship with the applicant. Second, specific contributions to the project, expertise, data access, mentoring, or resources. Third, confirmation of commitment and availability for the project duration. And fourth, endorsement of the project's importance and feasibility. So what are the practical tips? Request early. Drafting and signing letters can take several weeks. Provide templates or guidance. Funders prefer concise, direct letters and avoid generic statements. Each letter should be tailored to your project. So some funders limit letters to collaborators only, while others also value mentor letters for early career applicants. Always check, you need to check the call guidelines. So what now about the submission process? What is the submission portal or method? The submission portal depends on the funding agency and the specific grant program. So first, here you can see some common submission portals, the funder type, and some notes. UK Research Council, for example. Most UK grants require institutional endorsement before submission. Some private foundation, its foundation has its own instructions. And then you check about institutional submission. Many funders do not accept individual submissions. Your grants office or institutional administration must admit. Pay attention to both internal institutional deadlines and the official funder deadlines. Check about the file formats, the attachments, etc. And register early, check technical requirements, use portal tutorials or help desk and plug for backups. What it means? This means that you need to submit at least 24 to 48 hours before the deadline in order to handle technical issues. So should always coordinate with your institutional grants office because they often handle the final submission, they ensure compliance, and they can help with portal-specific requirements. Other internal now deadlines before the official due date. Yes, many institutions set internal deadlines before the funder's official submission date. So these internal deadlines helps ensure that proposals are completed, compliant, and reviewed before submission. So here, what you need to know. The purpose of internal deadlines. Grants or sponsored research offices need time to review proposals for compliance with funder rules, budget caps, formatting, ethics approvals. Then signatures and endorsements. This allows time to obtain required signatures from department heads, etc. The internal competition. Some institutions have limited resources or matching funds and the need to prioritize submissions. And technical submission checks. This means that you need to upload documents correctly to the funder portals and resolve any technical issues. The typical timing, here you can see 2 to 4 weeks before the official deadline. This is a common window for internal interview. Earlier for large multi-institution proposals, some universities require 6 to 8 weeks for internal approval. And the other category is rolling or small grants, which may have shorter internal deadlines. So what you need to submit internally, usually this is related with draft proposal, the narrative, the budget, supporting documents, letters of support, budget justification, the ethics approval, and any forms required by the institution. Check your grants office early, treat internal deadlines as non-negotiable, and allow extra time for revision. So internal deadlines are as important as funder deadlines because they ensure that your application is polished, is compliant, and institutionally supported. And then you can track your submission and review status. Here you have the submission confirmation, the first part, which has to do with automatic receipt. Most portals provide an instant confirmation once your proposal is successfully submitted. So this includes tracking number and source submission ID, or may include a timestamp for official deadline verification. And then institutional confirmation, your grants or sponsored research office may also send an internal confirmation once they submit on your behalf. Portal status updates. Here you can see the status received or submitted, under review, or it may show the label revisions requested or awarded, funded, declined, or not funded. Most portals allow you to log in at any time to see the current status. You may have notifications. Many funders send automatic emails when the proposal moves to a new stage, review, decision, award. And portal dashboard, you can check periodically because some portals update faster than email notifications. Post-submission steps, track reviewer feedback. So after the review is complete, most funders provide a summary or reviewer comments. The award management, if funding, your portal often links to contract setup, budget approval, and reporting requirements. And some practical tips that you need to keep your tracking number, portal login credentials safe, coordinate with your grants office, check portal deadlines for accepting revisions or signing of more documents. So this means that you need to treat your submission as active until the award decision. Tracking closely ensures that you don't miss requests for clarification, approvals, or post-award requirements. Now, for review evaluation, you need to understand the evaluation criteria. Reviewers evaluate proposals according to specific criteria, which can vary slightly by funder, but generally include three core areas. What are these three core areas? Scientific merit, feasibility, and impact. So the first one is original innovation, the rigor quality. Are your hypotheses clear testable? Is the research design appropriate for the question? Are the methods analysis well described and strong? The alignment with the field. Is it relevant to current priorities in the discipline? The second one is to check if the research plan that you have submitted is feasible, is realistic, the timelines are reasonable, the resources and environment, you have access to necessary facilities, the budget justification, are the costs reasonable? And the impact. The impact is usually scientific. The first one, will the project advance knowledge or create new research avenues? Social, will the project contribute to solving real-world problems? And broader impacts, education, training opportunities, or if there is a potential for technology transfer, commercialization, etc. Additional criteria could involve the ethics and compliance, the team qualifications, if there is a track record of expertise of your team, if they are able to execute the project, and the strength of partnerships and multidisciplinary approaches. Now, about the scoring and ranking system, most funding agencies use a scoring or ranking system to evaluate proposals, though the exact system varies by funder. Understanding how your proposal will be scored can help you tailor your writing to maximize points. So typical scoring systems include numeric scales. Reviewers assign numeric scores to each criterion. Here you can see exceptional, excellent, very good, etc. There are weight also criteria. Each evaluation criteria carries a different weight in the final score. And about ranking systems, review panels may rank proposals related to one another. Funders may use rankings to decide which proposals to fund when the budget is limited. So how scoring works? We have individual review. Each reviewer scores proposals independently. The panel discussion, have a consensus score. Consensus score is when the final score is calculated. A funding decision, proposals with the highest scores will be subject to selected for funding. Written feedback is important, and here reviewers often explain the strengths and weaknesses and suggestions for improvement. If the funder provides a scoring rubric, you can use it as a checklist while you draft your proposal in order to ensure that you maximize points in each category. Now, for practical tips, you need to address all criteria clearly. Reviewers allocate points per criteria, highlight innovation and significance. This often carry the most weight, and follow funder guidelines strictly. So formative, page limits, etc. If your application is rejected, in most cases, funders provide feedback on rejected proposals, though the depth and format vary by agency. Feedback is extremely valuable for improving future submissions. So what we expect here is some reviewer comments or summary statements or panel discussion notes. So you can get a summary of the discussion, some score sheets, for example, numeric scores, or some private institutions or small grants provide minimal feedback. You may get a limited feedback. So how to access your feedback? You log in the submission portal, contact with the grants office, and how to make the most of feedback is to analyze the patterns, look for repeated comments. Of course, pay attention to the weaknesses of the methodology, of the problems in budgeting significance. Try to revise strategically, address specific issues before you resubmit your proposal or before applying to another funder, and seek for mentorship. Discuss feedback with a mentor or senior researcher. So treat the feedback, could see here as a learning opportunity. Even well-written, innovative proposals are often rejected due to competition or budget limits. Reviewer comments can guide improvements of future submissions. So post-award management, managing funds and keeping financial records is critical for compliance and accountability in research grants. Funders expect you and your institution to track spending carefully and report it accurately. So first, if you get the award, what you will do, how you will manage your funds, how you will keep financial records. you set up a separate grant account. Most institutions maintain a dedicated account for each grant. Keep grants funds separate from other departmental or personal finance, and track expenses carefully, of course, for travel, for direct costs. Try to maintain documentation, save all receipts, invoices, keep digital and paper copies securely, note dates, purpose, and category of each expense. Use budget tracking tools. Most universities provide online tools, for example, to track spending. So we talk about institutional financial systems, or there could be spreadsheet tracking, which is useful for small grants to reconcile expenditures against the approved budget. Comply with funders' rules, so follow the funders' guidelines and allowable costs, avoid committing funds, check approval requirements, etc. And reporting, many funders require regular financial reports, quarterly, semi-annual reports usually include the total expenditures by category, explanations of deviations from budget, remaining funds, and planned use. Audits, this means keep records organized for institutional and external audits. Be prepared to provide supporting documents for every expense and work closely with your grants or financial office. This helps ensure compliance, produce reports, and advise on allowable costs. Other reporting requirements, most recent grants have formal reporting requirements to ensure accountability, to track progress, and demonstrate impact. So requirements vary by funder, but generally fall into several categories. Often annual or semi-annual progress reports, financial reports. Funders typically also expect peer-reviewed journal articles, conference presentations, dataset protocols, software tools made publicly available if applicable. The acknowledgement of funding, always credit the funding agency in publications and presentations. The final reports submitted at the end of the project, and additional reporting if required. This means the outcomes for stakeholders, what are the outcomes, community engagement, policy impact, the ethics or regulatory compliance update, the metrics tracking. So this means that you need to track progress, publications, and expenditures as the project proceeds rather than waiting until deadlines. This makes reporting easier and ensures nothing is missed. So you can request a budget also revisions or extensions if it's needed, when it is allowed, whether there is a reallocation between categories, when you move funds from travel to equipment, when you add personal consultancy justified, when you adjust costs due to price changes or unforeseen circumstances, then this is allowed. You submit a formal budget modification request, but there are some, and you include the justification, explain why the change is necessary, and you get institutional approval. But remember that some categories may have hard caps, direct costs. Major changes may require prior approval or a formal amendment. Project extensions, when this is allowed, when there are delays due to unforeseen circumstances, equipment delivery, staffing issues, regulatory approvals, global crisis. So then you need to make a request in writing before the original end date. So extensions usually have time limits, 6 to 12 months. It's not unlimited. And practical tips, you plan early. You communicate with your grants office, you justify early, explain why changes are necessary, and avoid informal changes. Even minor reallocations or delays should go through formal channels. Funders are usually flexible if requests are well documented, justified, and submitted on time. So if you follow all the steps that I have presented today, I think we have explored this in details. Then you have 100% chances to get your grant to achieve a successful grant application. So thank you very much for your attention.
Wow, really, as usual, Dr. Rania, really excellent presentation. And And I see that this grant proposal, the guidelines and everything can be also applied for not only for research, we can use it for many other grant application as well. So fantastic presentation. Thank you for all the best efforts you have given into putting this presentation a successful one. And thank you for the time you are spending today, because I understand that you were extremely busy at work in the office, and even that you never canceled the masterclass. You made it a point to have it today. Thank you, Dr. Rania. And thank you, dear audience. I am very sure you have benefited from this amazing, insightful presentation. Very detailed, very well presented. And I like all the slides, and how it's presented. Thank you so much. And till we meet again in next Thursday on another new topic. And till then, happy weekend. And don't forget, we'll have our Sustainable Development Goal Forum on Wednesday with another interesting guest. Thank you.
Thank you very much.